So, Emily and Sophie, we're doing another segment for the podcast, which is answering listeners' questions about therapy. And the first question is, how can therapy help me?
Big question.
Sure.
I think therapy can help in lots of ways, big and small. And I think it depends a bit on what you are seeking therapy for. It can help in terms of short-term goals, which might be more things to do with behaviour. And it can also help much deeper things, whether you've experienced something really, really challenging, whether you have patterns of relationships that feel destructive or not healthy and you're trying to work it out. It's quite a hard question to answer because it so depends on what your objective is, I think. Maybe it's easier to answer what can therapy not do than what can therapy do. I don't know.
Well, I think what therapy can't do is change the past. It's not a magic wand, and it is by no means a panacea for all ills. But what I hope therapy can do, and actually I had this with a client this morning, is change your relationship to what happened.
And sometimes change your relationship with yourself.
Exactly, in the process, because often the narrative you developed at the time was the kind of fast-track coping mechanism that you had, this that you were bad or you did something wrong or all people are bad, that you make some kind of limiting belief from that, which then influences all of your behaviours or a lot of your behaviours in relationships going forward. So I think a very significant part of therapy is beginning to explore and raising awareness about what your beliefs are and how they've been shaped by the past.
Yeah, like a making sense.
Yeah, making sense. And also rewrite your narrative. I think the story you tell yourself about yourself is often the person you become. And so you can change your story about yourself through therapy.
I also think I've had therapy a lot at different times in my life for different reasons. So I think at my sort of darkest, lowest point, therapy was a place that I could go just to sort of be in pain with somebody else. And then at other parts of my life, I was trying to figure out relationships and my role in relationships. And that was a different role of therapy. It was more exploratory. It was less like, oh, I'm like spilling my guts.
You'll always get slightly different answer from different therapists. Just because if you have a different approach, there'll be a different focus. If you have a CBT therapist, they might talk more about how your thinking and your beliefs can change in therapy. If you're working with a person-centered therapist, it might be more about being lack of judgment and coming in relationship with more acceptance with yourself and congruence. So it can be confusing because people will give you quite different answers according to their approaches. We can process differently in relationship to the way that we can process on our own. So thinking about something over and over again in your head, it's different. It's a different experience to be doing that in relationship with someone else and in a safe space. So often in our lives, we might have difficult things and we might try talking to people in our lives about difficult things that we're struggling with. But one of the challenges in those relationships is that people have a perception of us. They often have an agenda, even if that agenda is very well-meaning. We'll often be conscious of the judgment that people have of us or the consequences of either impacting them or on the relationship if we speak about what's really going on. I think one of the things that therapy can offer that almost no other relationships can offer is a confidential, safe space where you're not responsible for the other person. So you can really talk about, you can go to the dark places or you can choose not to go to the dark places, and you have the agency in that space to do what you need to do. And that might look really different, as Emily said, at different times.
Perfect. I think that's a really good set of answers.